suspect that maybe they were built by an advanced species. You know, so you have different arguments going on. Though I have yet to really illustrate that in any of my books thoroughly. Um, yeah, I've started the lettering there. Lately, like with the past several pages, I mean, I started using a light box to with a horizontal line grid underneath the page, so that I can keep my lettering um, even spaced as well as um, horizontally accurate, I guess. However, on this particular page, all the characters are yelling and in distress, so they're not like speaking in a calm tone or a normal tone. So I'm not too concerned about how even the words are. That ruler I'm using, I've got several sizes of that brand. It's a see-through ruler. I love those things. They're really light. You can obviously see-through is a C letter C dash THRU. It's the brand name. Um, they got a nice 1/8" grid pattern on it, so it's good for helping you with things that are like technical and architectural in nature. I use them a lot for weapons, because weapons look like crap if you try to draw them freehand, unless you're going for a more exaggerated cartoon style. And while I have that element, especially with the way I draw the mouths on these characters, with the weapons, I want them to look cool. In that almost photorealistic kind of way, even though they're kind of a hybrid of cartoony and photorealism. But I find that I get what I want by keeping them as straight as a straight edge can make them. Because I can't draw that straight freehand. As you notice, most of my robots, they're curvy in their design. A lot like the Aibo, the Sony Aibo guy, or what are they called? I think Honda, or is that Honda who makes that guy? Osimo or something. Yeah. The thing about those rulers, though, you can't leave them out in the sun or in your car if it's hot outside, because they will warp and be very difficult to use at that time. And then you need to go buy new ones, unless you're willing to tolerate having to press them down flat to make them work the way you need them to. Now, this big guy that I'm drawing here, who's all muscles and stuff, I don't know, I don't want to give any spoilers, but just call him Uber for now. These guys are special forces. They're roaming a fallen city, or a ruined city in the Dominant Nation, looking for a group of insurgents led by a Dominoc scientist who is regarded as highly dangerous. And he's on the coalition's most wanted list. Yeah, I'm just kind of getting caught up in just watching myself draw. It's kind of interesting. Or I guess right now I'm lettering there. It's Lieutenant Gammas giving orders. And come up with something for Sergeant Jag to say, the Ithorian. Now, right there, I was just lettering Amjak's speech, and about where that speech bubble is, I was going to have his friend, another Ithorian that he's been paired up with. I was going to have him there in the background, but I changed my mind. Partly because I just didn't want to spend time drawing him again, and because I also drew a similar panel on the previous page. Part of me felt like, originally I wanted him there because, well, he's there right next to Amjak, and that's who he's talking to, but with such a small panel, it probably would have just cluttered the page up, and especially when he's just going to be yelling. Now I'm inking with a nib. I've over the years I've changed. I vary in my inking choices, and how I ink, what I ink with. I'm using Speedball India ink. I'm reaching over to my right and dipping it into a little vial that's sitting on my tray. And I found that what I like to use nibs for the most is inking my lettering. It's great for hand lettering. It gives me the look that I want without the staticness that comes with digital lettering, which I did for a long time because I got tired of. Lettering is really hard, especially when you have a lot of dialogue. So, like, for the first book, 95% of the lettering is digital. In the second book, I did it for more than half the book, probably about 60-70%, and at some point I started just doing more and more lettering by hand. The time I was still lettering with microns. I hadn't yet figured out that, the best way to letter is with a nib. For my earliest work, I did do a lot of inking with nibs just because all my favorite artists did that. And they said that's how you're supposed to do your inking, but I never quite really got the hang of it. And I do some inking. Like later on, I'm going to do the final polishing with that same nib on all the characters. I've been doing, at least these last few pages, been doing all my containment lines with the nib. And some of the other pages for this book too, I've been inking either just totally with a nib on some of the pages, but lately, with these last couple, I've gone back to what I used to do, like I did it a lot with a Headhunter, was I would do the first layer of inking with a micron pen and erase all the pencils, and then I would go back over it with a nib or a brush, depending on what it is. Almost all the machines, anything that was machine-like or mechanical, I would either strictly use microns on, or the nib. I'd almost never use brush on robot characters, just because the line that a brush creates is really organic looking, and which is great for hair, great for humans, animal characters, but not too good for machine type creatures. So in this book, there's I consciously chose for some flashback sequences that happen throughout, in the interest of giving them a distinct look from the rest of the book. I ink it purely with brush. Even the straight lines, all the robots, everything is inked with brush so that it looks different than regular time. And it's effective, though I wouldn't want it for every single page and every single look. My tendency is to change whenever I get bored of a particular method of inking or penciling or whatever. It's really the inking. There's not many not a lot of different methods for penciling that I use. But with inking, you know, I go back and forth a lot between brushes and and nibs and just felt pens like the microns and the pits, which is, I think that's what I'm using there. I tend to use a medium-sized pit for my panel borders. And that's a 0.1 micron that I use for all the details. For larger illustrations like what I'm doing there, it can sometimes be better to use a thicker pen than what I'm using, like a like a super fine pit. It's much thicker than a 0.1 micron, and it can be better for larger drawings because well, it's faster. You know, you get a thicker line. You know, I'm having to repencil some things. I do that like all the time. You know, I'll start inking, but then I realize, oh, I need to change this, or I forgot to right there. I forgot to draw in the this little power hose that goes into his gun. Oh, you saw my bed head just then. This is what is this? This is going at 4 times speed, and we're 27 minutes into this. So multiply that times 4, and I've taken a couple breaks here and there between takes. You know, I mean, as I've drawn this, I would pause the camera and go give me some coffee or eat breakfast or what have you, do some chores. Like when you saw me using the nib, I would pause the camera and go whenever I clean the nibs off, because as soon as I'm done using them, you have to go and clean them off real quick. So you don't want all that ink caking in there. And now we're getting into serious detail. It's the kind of stuff that just takes me a long time. Definitely why I like time-lapse. I know some people, especially when you're trying to learn from other people, they don't like time-lapse, but frankly I don't have the patience to sit there and watch somebody draw super slow. And there, I'm trying to remember what the hell I'm doing. Or maybe I'm looking at a reference, I don't know. When I pause like that. Yeah, I'm definitely having to look at references to remember where the hell all the little cyber gear that's implanted on this dude's face is located. This is probably only like the 4th time that I've drawn this character. And I usually just draw a character one time when I design them. You know, unless it's the main character and I'm really, you know, I draw them over and over again trying to figure out designs and poses and things like that. Same goes with this Vipneg guy that he's that Uber's effing up right now. I'm looking at this now. I don't think I really got the proportions correct. Uber's supposed to be much bigger than Vipneg. Maybe, I don't know. I mean, I did the proportions, I guess, in accordance to the 3D layouts that I make. That's another thing. You can see underneath my artboard there a printout of the 3D layouts that I make on my computer. I use Google SketchUp, the free version of Google SketchUp, to build cityscapes and backgrounds and things like that, so I can get the basic shapes and keep everything in place, so no matter at what angle I know where everything is. And I usually take those printouts and put them on the Lightbox, and I do like what you didn't see me do at the start of this, like the night before I began recording this and doing all the main pencils, is I transfer the basic